Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience in holding. We now have your presenters in conference. Please be aware that each of your lines is in a listen-only mode. You may submit your questions electronically at any time by using the Q&A window located to the right of your slideshow. You may also download a copy of today's presentation by using the Files for Download window located beneath the Q&A window. And as the call concludes, we'll also be taking your audio questions, and at that time, instructions will be given as to the procedure to follow if you'd like to ask an audio question. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's first presenter, Ms. Shauna Brown.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you all for joining the AHA and its section for long-term care and rehabilitation on a webinar to highlight some of the successful strategies and experiences of your colleagues that are featured in our section's 2017 Members Only Best Practice Series. Today's webinar, entitled Violence Prevention Joint Community Efforts. As you know, violence is a significant public health problem impacting the health and well-being of communities throughout the United States. And each of our communities' capacity to prevent violence varies on that community member's level of engagement and the support from law enforcement and other government entities. The University of Maryland's Rehabilitation and Orthopedic Institute, along with some of their community partners, have worked together to padlock and eventually close the station near the hospital that had reportedly been the site of some drug activity and other related crimes. And in support of our Hospitals Against Violence initiative, the AHA and its section for long-term care and rehabilitation is delighted to host today's webinar. Joining me on the call is a member of the Section's Council, Cynthia Kelleher, President and CEO of the University of Maryland Rehabilitation and Orthopedic Institute, and Lynn Williams, the Security Coordinator for the Rehab Institute. They will speak to the role that hospitals can play to ensure the safety of their employees and patients and to reduce violence in their communities by collaborating with law enforcement, the business community, and other groups. You'll also learn how to organize and partner with others, how to plan and manage the financial impacts of these efforts, and how to use political and economic pressures to strengthen your cases. Included with your confirmation for today's call was a link to download the presentation that's online, as well as the brief bios for all the speakers. After their presentations, our panelists will respond to the questions that you've submitted online. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Cindy to kick us off.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So again, I'm Cindy Kelleher. I'm President and CEO of University of Maryland Rehabilitation Orthopedic Institute, one of 14 hospitals in the University of Maryland system, and partnering today with Lynn Williams, who's our Manager of Security. I want to sort of advance a little bit the scenario here of what we face in the background. Just a little bit of background that I think is important. The hospital has been here for 120 years, but we straddle the Baltimore City, Baltimore County line. So even though we sit on 88 acres, the area is largely urban. And on one side we have a fairly well-known community called Dickeyville. At one corner we have a gas station that we'll talk about a little bit later. And on the other, we have some low-income housing and an apartment complex. So it's a very mixed area, if you will. And we had noticed that there were a lot of issues going on at the gas station. This has been going on for some time. For over years, there have actually been 2 shootings at the gas station. There have been numerous incidents of reported drug trafficking. We believe that the operator of the gas station was complicit in allowing people to basically transact drugs as well as guns out of the gas station. And even though the community had tried several times to do something about this, they had no impact. And that's when the hospital decided to get involved, because obviously this impacts our patients and families. It impacts our staff and the ability to recruit. So we used, and we'll talk a little bit more, but we used our political pressure to really ask the Baltimore City to do something about the situation. We partner with Baltimore City Police. We got more formal, and I'm going to let Lynn talk about something we call FPAC. But basically, we dusted off an old tool called a padlock order, which is basically the ability of Baltimore City Police to literally lock the gas station so that they can no longer operate for business. This order had actually not been used more than, I think, greater than 10 years. We did get support from the ultimate owner of the gas station, which was Carroll Fuel, and it is hard to, kind of close somebody's business, but through a lot of diligence, letter writing, and political pressure, we were able to shut the gas station down so that the drugs and the guns could no longer be trafficked. We've done some other things around that initiative, including the hospital hosting a community night out. There's a little strip shopping center connected to the gas station. We did coffee and donuts with the police. But key to all of this was really partnering with our local politicians as well as Baltimore City Police, because they were very aware of the drug trafficking as well as the guns, but needed somebody to sort of curb that activity. I want to step back now that I've stepped the stage and let Lynn talk a little bit about who makes up what we call FPAC. She'll define who that is and the wide variety of people we got to participate in this effort.
Okay, so this is Lynn Williams, and I'm the manager, as Cindy has spoken, for the University of Maryland Rehabilitation Orthopedic Institute Security Department. We actually have about 20 participants that actually are part of the Forest Park Action Council. We have actually become LLC. We have articles of bylaws, so we are a true formative council. We actually have Peter, who is our president, and he's our board chair. Peter has a lot of political affiliates. He also he's been in Dickeyville. He's part of Dickeyville Community Association, and he's been in Dickeyville better than 25 years himself. So he's seen a lot of things happen, seen the crime level increase. Dickeyville is one of the affluent communities in this area, and with him taking the lead and just helping us to orchestrate what we would like to do as far as a community coming together. Our CFO at UM Rehab sits as the treasurer for FPAC. We also have two churches that surround us. One is a Presbyterian church, and that's Reverend Jennifer Barkey. She happens to be the secretary, but she has a lot of impact in it. And we also use the Martin Luther King Memorial Church, Methodist Church, and they also have input. With it being a community, we felt it was best to reach out to each of the community partners here in order to have a strong stance, and everyone would be a part of what we actually had going on. We have a board of directors. One of the board of directors is Dave Epperhart. He actually owns the strip mall, and he leased the property to BP. So we needed to have him to be a part of this because with his buy-in, it would help us to move this process along. We also attracted 6 of the apartment complexes that are associated with us. So we actually have members from each of the apartment complexes. We have the membership from Franklintown Community Association. So they actually sit on. We have something here called Build, and Build works with a lot of the works with the churches in order to help figure out what they need to do to help the youth in the community and help with housing and things of that nature. So we actually have Libby Cohen, who is part of Build, and she is instrumental in working with the parents in the school, because we have schools that surround us, as well as working with apartment complexes in order to get everyone aboard in order to move our community, the Forest Park Action Council, to the next level. We have actually been touched by other communities to find out what is it that we've done to make our community look so good, and how do we get everybody to be a part of that. And that has just been wonderful, and being able to reach out in order to speak to people, to touch. We have the principal from the Dickey Hill Elementary Middle School. He participates, but from a school standpoint, he's limited in what he can actually do. He actually allowed us to meet in his in the school. Once we became LLC, we were not able to do that with the 501(c)(3), so we actually had to meet at the church. So in turn, it's just turned out to have been a wonderful group of individuals, and we've been actually about 18 months to 24 months actually with this. as Cindy said, prior to, we did have a couple, the community organizations that were trying to do things, but not that we were able to even make a dent to be known in what it was that we were actually trying to do. So I will say with the leadership of our president, who is Peter, we've actually just been able to just blossom in the city. We have the councilman who sits in at the meeting. If he's unable to attend our meetings, he actually sends his assistant. So we are able to touch all the parties in order to get the information that we need to be received out. So having a council person as part of this community, he's able to speak about it at the council meetings, and and he has the mayor's ear, and he's able to speak to the mayor in order to help point things in the directions that we need. We invested in something called City Watch, which is a camera system that we have. It was a $30,000 project. We, as the FPAC, weren't able to afford how to do that just starting up. So UM Rehab actually took the initiative, and we said, okay, we'll give you $5,000 towards that $3,000. How can we achieve this? Carol Fuse stepped up at that point. They matched ours with $5,000. So that was $10,000 just with two big corporations. And then we just looked for the community. How can the community help? And everyone stepped up, and we were able to come up with our $30,000.
So City Watch is a camera system that Baltimore City uses, but it does allow us to monitor activity at the gas station. And again, originally I think the overall community members were somewhat overwhelmed, but by us starting the ball rolling with our contribution of $5,000, we did activate City Watch. And I know Lynn's going to talk a little bit about it, but I've put up our next slide. This is actually Mayor Catherine Pugh in one of the photos here. We actually ended up finally being successful in getting the gas station closed of June 2016. A few months ago, we have reopened the gas station with a new operator who is not dealing guns and drugs. He's used to operating in Baltimore City, so it's a win for the community. And I'll let Lynn talk a little bit about what we have up right now. This is actually taken out of what we communicate to our staff, because obviously safety is very important.
So with the cameras being, Baltimore City Police actually are the cameras are 24/7. So if there's any type of activity, any illegal activity, any criminal activity, it's recorded. It's right there. So if there are gunshots, it records in, so they can actually zone into the location that maybe gunshots have been fired, or whether or not there is attempted robberies or things of that nature going on. And it actually has the $30,000 that was invested in it, I think we've already made profit over that, because what we actually had, there was a total of 26 drug dealers, gang-related individuals that were arrested, and they were arrested underneath RICO through the federal as far as criminal activities. And out of the 26, 20 are serving time as we speak. So we won't see them back in our neighborhood. That doesn't mean that the drugs goes away or any of that, but what we've done is we put a cap, and we know what's going on in the community. And the community themselves, when the neighbors see something, they have no problem calling in, because they know the support is coming in from the community. So it's not isolated, and people are not fearful. So at 8 o'clock at night, they have no problem going to the gas station, because they know City Watch cameras is watching, and the community, we're all watching each other to make sure we know what's going on in the community, and we're all there to help each other in the community. With us having an elementary, middle school, the concern was for these young people that may be crossing the street, going to the gas station or going to any of the little stores in the strip mall. We wanted to make sure that those individuals were safe, not just the adults, but the kids, because the kids, a lot of kids are latchkey kids in the neighborhood, and so they are, back and forth. We want to keep our eyes on them. We want to make sure they're safe, and FPAC has actually been able to do that and make a major contribution in how we do things. If there's any incidents that transpire, we are immediately on the phone. I'm on the phone with Peter, who is the president, and Peter's on the phone, and so we have calls coming in, and they're coming into our political group, and they know that, FPAC is not playing. They're serious about what they want to do for their community, and they want to take back their community. And that's what we've done over the 18 months.
Right. So we have a slide up again, Catherine Pugh, and these are all the members of FPAC. Let me talk a little bit now, if I could, about how I see the role of the hospital. And I will tell you that my view has dramatically changed in the last 2 years. If you actually told me that I would be dealing with 27, drug dealers at the corner of the hospital that eventually, again, were arrested by the ATF, I would tell you, you've got to be kidding me. And, I felt like I maybe was living somewhat of a sheltered life because I really didn't believe until I saw the films where you put your money in, in a gas station, you put your money in the little drawer, and in our case, out come guns.
Yeah.
So my views have definitely changed, but what we did from the hospital standpoint and what I think we all can do is these community groups, even though they kind of have a sense of what to do, they really need our organizational abilities. So we were able to help them get organized, offer meeting space. Again, our CFO, believe it or not, is the treasurer of this group, because that's one of the things I think we can definitely bring to the overall experience for the community. We also, as Lynn alluded to, $5,000 is a small investment for safety in the community, but we did fund a couple of other things, including nights out. We do some things here in the community. We recently had a movie night, and we invite folks. So, and just offering them space. So, but we do the money we've spent is pretty minor. The political pressure is big. When I, as a CEO for the University of Maryland Medical System, and again, one of 14 hospitals that we own, employing 20,000 employees, and I am calling, the CEO of the system, who we're putting political pressure on the mayor, as well as others, that, we're having a hard time making families and patients feel safe. I've got drug deals going in the parking lot. Staff is not safe. That gets people's attention, because what the city doesn't want to do is lose those folks that are employed here or have some kind of a major incident. Because we are connected with Maryland Shock Trauma, we are treating a variety of people, including police officers and politicians, as well as people that may be involved in the gun or drug trade. I think the other thing is economic pressure, and I was hardly very popular when I went down this path, but we mentioned that the land is owned by now what is one of our members, and we were having a hard time getting him as well as Carol Fuel on board. And basically, I began to issue memos to my staff saying, I, as CEO, feel it's unsafe for you to go to the subway. I feel it's unsafe for you to fill your gas, get your gas at the BP. I can't, so to speak, tell you what to do, but we're advising you that we do not think that this is a safe area to go to. I will tell you that both Carol Fuel as well as the property owner was less than happy. Mm-hmm. They questioned whether I had the legal right to do that. We, again, because I was suggesting it, not mandating it, we felt comfortable in that. And that really was sort of a turning point for both Carol Fuel as well as the property owner, because we employ 700 employees who are no longer using the subway and no longer getting gas at the gas station. So that really turned things around. And then Carol Fuel did get on board because they realized we were not going away. Yes. We told them we wanted the operator replaced. We were fine that a gas station was there, but we could not have an operator, again, dealing guns and drugs out of the gas station. I think you have to remain vigilant. We do try to get out, on top of all of our other responsibilities. I certainly have gone to meetings. If they have a 7 o'clock night meeting for FPAC or one of the other organizations, we try to go. Lynn goes sometimes as my ambassador. We make sure that we're attending these meetings because we still occasionally see some challenges at the gas station. Unfortunately, not long after the photo was taken in our prior slide here, we did have another shooting at the gas station between two parties that knew that one of the parties had cash on them. And it just happened to be one of those things that sort of collided at the gas station. Again, we were immediately on the phone to FPAC about what happened. contacted, again, the mayor's office and started the whole process. So these things don't necessarily go away. You have to remain vigilant in trying to stay focused. So it's sort of speak not a one and done. You have to stay involved in the community. We have been very, very successful in Baltimore City, and Lynn is right. People are ask us all the time how we did this, but it really is being willing to take that first step. I was very willing to write letters. I was at one point asked to testify at the padlock hearing. I never ended up having to do that, but I was prepared to do that. A lot of these community members are not willing to do that because of safety risk, but, as the CEO is very committed to doing this, and like I say, we did write some letters about why we felt that the court should rule for a padlock order. So that's kind of, I wish I could say everything is perfect. It's not. We continue to work on it, but I do think that we've made incredible strides on safety here. I certainly go to the gas station. I did go and meet the new owners. I do get gas there. We continue to stay in touch with our FPAC members to stay vigilant on this, and it's certainly a lot better. We know, though, if we don't stay vigilant, we'll be back to where we were. So that is sort of the highlights of my presentation and Lynn's. And we would be happy to answer, any questions, or anybody want to share any thoughts about some of the things they're doing, again, around violence and the role hospitals can play in community safety.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the floor is open for your audio questions. If you'd like to ask an audio question, you may do so by pressing *1 now. And as a reminder, you can also submit your questions electronically as well. Again, to ask an audio question, press *1 now. At this time, we have no audio questioners in the queue.
Okay. Cindy or Lynn, did you want to talk a little bit more about the impact that this program had on the staff at the hospital, or this activity, I should say, had on the staff at the hospital, and were you able to raise the morale? Or I know at one time you talked about, that the employees were afraid to, go off campus, and have you had some change or some comments from the staff?
We've definitely improved that. There was a point here where, I really struggle with sending out that memo of don't shop at the subway, don't go to the gas station, because right there I'm admitting that, the area is risky. But again, I felt like we had to do that. We have since been encouraging staff to go there since things have improved. And we've done a lot just in safety in general. We have upgraded our lighting system. We've reviewed, which we constantly do, reviewed our security. We actually sit less than 6 miles from where the riots occur. So, we've been really looking at that. It does come up in employee engagement about safety. So we actually have a campaign that we call We Heard You, so we're constantly letting employees know what we're doing to ensure their safety, speed bumps in the parking lot and things like that. We do try to openly communicate with our staff about anything that might happen, because we've had a couple of other things go on where, our parking lot might become the point of a police chase. So I think it's better than it was, but I think that you have to stay vigilant. It's still not perfect because we do have an open campus and people can come onto the campus, but we have changed some of our security processes. As part of, this is a little bit beyond the community, the other issue we do face is that we may have individuals come into the hospital for a variety of reasons that we are concerned. Because of our connection with shock trauma, even though we're a rehab hospital, we may end up with somebody who has ended up at shock trauma due to a shooting or a stabbing. They become a patient here, And there is always that concern that whoever shot or stabbed that individual would track that person down. We use something we call an opt-out. Lynn, you want to talk a little bit about opt-out?
So opt-out is opt-out is a policy, and what happens is the individual transfers into our facility, and they don't want anyone to know that they're here in the facility. For safety reasons, we opt them out, and what that means is if anyone is visiting that patient has shared where they're located at. So we don't do like, it's set up with a room number and so forth, and the individual will have to be able to recite that. They are no longer allowed to use the patient's name at any time while they're in this organization. So if an individual comes in and says they want to see Lynn Williams, and Lynn Williams has been opted out, we don't have a patient by that name. And we'll have visitors say, well, I just spoke to him. I know that they're there. I'm sorry, again, we don't have a patient by that name. So we kind of run into that. We want to be opted out, but sometimes you want to share people coming in to visit, and we have to say to our visitors or the patient themselves that once you share that information, you no longer are no longer going to be safe, because people tend to share information with other individuals. And if they're sharing information with other individuals, it may be the person that you don't want to receive that information. So we prefer with the opt that you don't share that information with anyone. So have the significant other, have mom and dad be the only visitors that are coming in. Do not extend out to best friends and cousins and things of that nature, because people tend to talk. And
so that's one of the processes we use here to ensure, if we do have somebody that's a victim of violence, that, from our staff is very familiar with our opt-out policy. Again, we do not have a closed hospital. We do have security guards here 24/7. We do not arm our security guards. So it's somewhat of a porous, again, I'm on 88 acres, somewhat of a porous. If we have any concerns, though, we do, and we have brought in additional security. Occasionally we use a private security force. Again, they do not carry guns, but they do bring in large dogs. So, we are very vigilant about the types of patients we're taking in. Is this a gang issue? And we try to make sure we have, we try to be very vigilant where we can have the shooter and the shootee here in the hospital. And we try to make sure that they are not crossing paths in the gym and things like that and physically separate them. So we work on all of those things. So again, we try to be very transparent with staff. We do have a couple of processes and policies in place just to try to ensure everybody's safety.
Okay.
Cindy, I know that some of us on the East Coast anyway have just had another example with Johns Hopkins very recently, and I know you and I were talking a little bit about it earlier about some of the implications for you at the hospital and the kinds of things that you would do to protect the patient.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, unfortunately one of our other hospitals in Baltimore City had a stabbing on Friday. So it was basically there was a young child that had gone in for a procedure. Apparently mom and dad did not agree on how the care was being provided. The mother stabbed the father. Unfortunately, it was fatal. So the father did die in the hospital room, and the mother has now been arrested for murder one. So we now have a child who was a patient at Hopkins where the father is dead and the mother is under arrest. We often, I shouldn't say often, but a fair amount of time, we do see conflict in families. Our staff has been trained to de-escalate those situations, but the staff also knows that we have a certain protocol here. So if we believe that we will have issues with family members, our plan is, what we do is we take and often it is parents, it may be stepfathers or mothers or, whatever. We have a meeting in the chapel. We redirect them that it is really all about the care of the patient, and that the patient is the most important thing that we're all here to deal with. I work with Lynn and her team, and if need be, we will schedule times where the mom can come at one point and a dad or a stepdad can come at another point so that we do not have the two parties crossing in the hospital. If they cannot comply with our requests, hospital, and we treat them as trespassers, because again, at the end of the day, it is all about the patient, and clearly we do want patients to be able to have family members, but we have actually never had somebody not agree to this policy, where we're not going to have, again, mom and dad have argued for 15 years, and they're at the bedside and the argument continues. So, and I do not hesitate, nor does my staff, to get involved and sort of separate the parties and have that conversation. It's been very effective.
It has been. And
we have had very few problems, but it does require, again, myself and Lynn to get in the room with the parents or whoever the parties are and sort of sort out, you know, how we can work this out so they can still be involved in the, you know, in supporting the patient, but that we do not have this negative conflict when we're in a healing environment. And so that's one of the tactics we use very successfully.
No, thanks. We certainly are in an interesting neighborhood.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm afraid we are a reflection of, you know, the larger society that we are existing here in Baltimore. So.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank our panelists, and on behalf of the AHA and the Section for Long-Term Care and Rehabilitation, we appreciate such an insightful discussion and the wealth of information and resources that you've shared on, you know, violence prevention and joint community efforts. And we hope that all of the members who joined us today found this helpful, and we appreciate you joining as well. You can visit the section's website at www.aha.org, and you'll find this and other recordings and slide presentations for many of our best practice and member calls and webinars, as well as you can visit the AHA's Hospitals Against Violence website, where we also have many tools and resources that you might find useful as well. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me, and I can forward your questions to our speakers. And again, I'd like to thank all of you, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's presentation. You may disconnect your phone lines, log off your webinars, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.